will be financed.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, allow me to bid good morning to the Leader of the Opposition and thank him for this rare opportunity to provide information to members of the House concerning the mega social housing project, unprecedented, initiated by the Prime Minister and our government 2 years ago. Mr. Speaker, sir, the question relates to the project for construction of 12,000 residential housing units in response to growing demand. The House will recall, Mr. Speaker, that in his budget speech in the year 2020, in June 2020, the Minister of Finance announced an exceptional effort of government to build 12,000 residential units for families with a monthly income of up to 60,000 rupees. So there was a revision of the ceiling for entitlement to social housing announced by the Minister of Finance. And this was on top of the normal housing construction project of the NHDC. Now, to meet the needs of the most vulnerable families, as well as middle-income families, government announced that for families earning monthly income of up to 10,000 rupees, government would build 1,800 housing units and subsidize 80% of the cost. For families earning monthly income between 10,000 and 30,000 rupees, government would build 5,200 housing units and subsidize 67% of the cost. And for families earning monthly income between 30,000 and 45,000 rupees, government would build 3,500 housing units and subsidize 40% of the cost. And finally, for families having monthly income ranging from 45,000 to 60,000 rupees per month, government would build 1,500 housing units and would subsidize some 30% of the cost. So these were the, in response to Part B of the question, the proposed subsidy already announced in the budget speech of June 2020. Now, following the budget speech and after appropriate consultations, it was proposed that the new Social Living Development Limited, NSLD, would be the implementing agency for the construction. And it will be recalled that the NSLD was incorporated as a wholly owned company of the NHDC as an SPV, a special purpose vehicle. From July to October 2020, my ministry, together with the NHDC and the Ministry of Finance, Economic Planning and Development, worked on a project proposal whereby we would have 18 to 28 arpents of land in each constituency, excluding Rodrigue, for the construction of some 600 residential units per constituency. The sites would have to be easily accessible, high-rise building given the scarcity of land, high-rise as far as possible if the nature of the soil allows, and there would be enhanced on-site social amenities. There would be a new ecological dimension, green construction, in terms of rainwater harvesting, energy generation, energy efficiency, and waste disposal, and access to social services within the community. As from 2020, my ministry, in collaboration with the NSLD, began the complex exercise of identifying land that would be both suitable and buildable. I would pray the Leader of the Opposition to bear with me. I need to provide the information so that he is fully aware and understands our response, my response concerning project cost. Now, where it has been possible, we've given priority to state land or land vested in state-owned companies to diminish the pressure on public finance. And where it has not been possible to secure such land, the NSLD has had either to buy or to compulsorily acquire private land. And this exercise is still ongoing. From November 2020 to January 2021, the NSLD prepared the request for proposals, RFP, for the project management consultants, PMCCs. In July 2021, the RFP for the PMCCs was launched, and then we were hit by COVID in March 2021. Despite that, from April to July 2021, the bids for PMCCs were evaluated, and out of 10 bids, only 3 were technically and financially responsive. In August 21, the procurement exercise had to be cancelled, and a new reformulated RFP launched, and which eventually meant that between November 2021 and early 2022, 8 PMCCs, project management consultants, were appointed. As from December 2021, we began the geotechnical investigations by geotechnical consultant firms appointed by the PMCCs following relevant procurement procedures. This was done on identified sites, which is still continuing until now as a function of site identification and availability of these geotechnical consultancy firms. As from April of this year onwards, the NSLD with its PMCCs prepared concept designs, architectural drawings, detailed structural designs, and thereafter preparation of tender documents in respect of construction. As from August of this year, bids were launched in batches for construction. In September, the initial bids were opened, 5 out of a total of some 62. This may vary. And what was noted was that the figures submitted went beyond the 30% increase in construction costs as per Statistics Mauritius. So this has obviously significant implications, both for the total project cost and eventually the eventual selling price of these units. So we did 3 things with the approval of government. First, the NSLD reviewed its specifications for the housing units to align strictly with NHDC specifications, because they had tried as a first step to offer more comfortable surroundings, even more comfortable. So we've now aligned strictly with NHDC. Secondly, the contractual conditions were reviewed to ensure that there was an increased response from eventual bidders, building in more flexibility. And thirdly, therefore, accordingly, the bids that had already been closed and the bids that had in the meantime been launched had to be cancelled to allow for a relaunching of the call for bids, the call for tenders, on the basis of modified tender documents. Now we expect this exercise, the new launching of bids, to begin right now, this week, and proceed by phases thereafter. So all in all, this project of unprecedented magnitude has been severely hampered by COVID restrictions over 20 months, including 2 lockdowns, that entailed inevitable and significant delays. The major constraints have been unavailability of land, unsuitability of some sites identified, the limited number of available geotechnical contractors and equipment, and the limited absorptive capacity of the construction industry as a whole. Now, to respond directly to part A of the question, now that I've laid the background, the leader of the opposition will recall that in the budget speech of June 2020, my colleague, the Minister of Finance, announced that 12 billion had been earmarked by government for the construction of 12,000 housing units. He also announced that the household income eligibility ceiling was being raised to 60,000 rupees maximum, and he gave the details of the subsidy component, which I read out earlier. Thereafter, I remember there was a parliamentary question from Honourable David, and I had the opportunity to explain that the whole construction cost would not be 12 billion. 12 billion was what government was putting in. Then we would have to privately raise the balance, and which would be repaid when the houses are sold. Now, when the RFP was launched for PMCCs, the construction cost per house was mentioned as per the construction cost then of NHDC houses, between 1.5 to 1.9 million. The opening of bids, as I explained, have shown that the construction costs have increased by more than 30%, and so we have brought a number of amendments to our bids. So the final project work, the final project cost, let me also explain that we are now excluding a number of sites where the infrastructural work, substructure, earthworks, are costing abnormally high represent abnormally high cost. So the final project cost will be determined, can only be determined when we receive the new bids, and that will depend, at the time the bids come in, on revised construction sites, revised construction specification, contractual amendments, and evolution of construction costs. As we know, we have a lot of imported inflation there. The subsidy has already been announced in June 2020, and that formula is being maintained for the time being, subject, of course, to amendments that may be brought in the light of the total financial costs. As for the financing of the project, I have already explained that the balance of the 12 billion will be privately raised. I hope I have provided the information the Leader of the Opposition was seeking.
Thank you, Mr. I think it is, after looking at the file, unprecedented amateurism. But I will come to that in a moment. Mr. Speaker, the Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, the government have promised on repeated occasions that they would supply to the public, long-waiting public, 12,000 houses by 2024 at a cost to the purchaser of 700,000 rupees. Now, I want firstly to ask the Deputy Prime Minister.
I'm sorry, I missed the last part.
At a cost of, you missed the important one, at the cost of 700,000 rupees. Remember, you said that yourself in July. I can circulate if your memory has played with you at this stage. You said 12,000 houses, March 2024, 700,000 rupees to the purchaser. Are you maintaining this promise that you made? You also made the promise that it would be quality housing. Are you maintaining the four prongs of your promise to the people of Mauritius? That's my first question. Yes or no?
Mr. Speaker, the...
Maybe. No. What
sorry.
is it?
Yes
or no?
When you finish the answer.
Ah, c'est fait, yes or no?
Mon pas faire this. I go by parliamentary tradition. When you speak, I don't interrupt. Once you've finished, I wait until you've finished, and then I'll answer. Right. Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman speaks of unprecedented amateurism. Now, I would like to point out that, let's forget the NSLD. Just for the NHDC, we have already delivered, since the last elections, some 2,200 houses. That is more than the Labour Party and PMST delivered between the whole period of 2006 to 2014 in terms of houses built, and nearly the amount in terms of houses delivered. So, speaking of amateurism, Mr. Speaker, let me again say, this is unprecedented. It shows the commitment of government as the first major social project announced in June 2020, and despite COVID, despite the worst recession this country has known in its economic history, government has maintained its objective, and my colleague, the Minister of Finance, has reaffirmed this commitment in June 2021 and in June 2022. So yes, Mr. Speaker, we have only one word. That is a sacred commitment taken. We will build the 12,000 houses for the people of Mauritius.
The
Now,
cost
as
element.
regards the issue of unit cost, I have never stated that at whatever date the 12,000 units will be ready, whatever the size, whatever the location, it will be 700,000 rupees. What I have had the opportunity of stating in this House is the actual cost of NHDC houses, how much subsidy government brings in, and what is the balance that is to be repaid by prospective buyers, and government has extended the repayment period to 35 years now. So if the honourable gentleman wants to lay on the table of the House an answer I gave here, I am quite willing to comment thereupon.
Mr. Speaker, I certainly will lay a copy of a rendition of his speech on 11th June 2020, and we can do simple subtraction, we're not that stupid. And he says, le DPM a souligné que le coût pour la construction de chaque unité équivaut à 1,9 million de roupies, le gouvernement allouant un subside de 1,2 million de roupies sur chacune d'elles. We are not, Honorable Ratna is no longer here, so we can imagine, we can all calculate that it's going to be 700,000 rupees. But I don't want, I also tell...
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Speaker, I have not finished this time.
On a point of
I
order,
haven't finished.
if I may, on a point of order, the Leader of the Opposition has categorically stated that I communicated such information. The document being quoted from clearly is not answered. And it is therefore misleading the House to say that I would have stated here that all these houses would cost 700,000 rupees.
Oh, his misleading thing. He has, I'm surprised, since 2020, he has been talking about 600,000 rupees. You look stupid, Mr. Minister, in front of people, eh? You have talked about, and I will produce, since 2020 you've been producing that figure. So I understand now that the cost of 700,000 rupees per purchaser is no longer on the cards for you. Let the press will take up the rest, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to ask the Honourable Minister, Deputy Prime Minister. I'm going to ask the Deputy Prime Minister. He has said he wants to be transparent as energy. And my problem is not with NHDC. Eh? I accept that they constructed some 2,000 houses on a waiting list of 35,000. So people will understand. Now, Mr. Speaker, why doesn't he tell us that the average cost per the tenders received, the 4 or 5 tenders that you have opened, that the average cost per house is something like 6 million rupees, including project management costs, etc., etc. 6 million rupees for a house that you were mentioning in June 2020 was supposed to cost 2022. A few months ago, you went all over the place to say that the cost would be, wait a minute, to cost would be, wait a minute, wait a minute.
Put your question.
I'm saying, wait a minute, would cost 1.9 million.
You're not putting your question. I disallow this question.
You have said everywhere that the cost would be 1.9 million rupees. Why don't you tell this House, since you have said that you are going to be transparent, what were the bids received and whether or not the bids were to the average value of 6 million rupees per unit per the design that you have yourself approved? That's my question. Is that all right, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, let me thank the Leader of the Opposition who seems to be worried that I may look stupid. Let me assure him, at the end of this mandate, he will be judged on his words. We on this side of the House will be judged on our deeds. And we are confident that we will have deeds to show the public. I maintained that I have never stated that NSLD houses, when they will be built and delivered, and I can't say exactly when that will be, I hope that they will all be delivered in 2024. But I am no magician, and building houses throughout our history has never been child's play. Now, I have never mentioned 700,000. What I have stated when delivering NHDC houses in the past is that those units have cost 1.9 million, depending on which site where we delivered houses. We do not know, and I maintain, we do not know where global inflation is going. We do not know if there will be a recession in the Western countries. We do not know when the war in the Ukraine will end. We cannot foresee what imported inflation will be. Nobody, Mr. Speaker, and certainly not the leader of the opposition, can foresee what the final costs of construction will be. Now, I do not design houses, and I do not approve designs of houses. This is the responsibility of the NSLD. Government lays down broad policy directives. We are building high-rise as far as possible to make optimal use of the scarce land that we have and of the public funds that we have at our disposal. Now, when I have not also, Mr. Speaker, let me make that clear, looked at tender documents or looked at bids that have been submitted. If the leader of the opposition knows that in these bids, in all the bids, invariably, the price quoted is 6 million rupees, I do not know that. What I do know for a fact is that the price of these houses quoted in the first tender exercise, which has now been cancelled, was more than 30% the actual construction cost of NHDC houses. We are changing the specifications because we want all these 12,000 houses to be affordable. We are building for the poorer sections of the community and the middle classes. The litmus test of our endeavors will be the ability to build and deliver and sell at affordable prices. And this is a constant concern that I discuss regularly with the Prime Minister, my colleagues of government, and especially the Minister of Finance. We will do our utmost to make these houses affordable to those who are in need of housing.
Just perhaps advise.
Let me announce that the document tendered by the Leader of the Opposition have been declared unauthenticated, and I instruct the clerk to return those documents to the Leader of the Opposition.
As usual, thank you. I just want to say one thing to the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. First, he has not denied that the average cost of the house per the opening bids are 6 million. Secondly, is he aware that it is good practice for bids when they're opened to be published so that it is transparent? And therefore, I would ask the Deputy Prime Minister today to take the commitment that he would publish and table on the table of this House the list of all the open bids, the tenders that have been made by NSLD since he's saying September. Will he, in the name of transparency, table the list of the bids that have been received? Because that is standard practice. Transparency. Nothing to hide. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, let me again make it clear. I have neither confirmed nor denied the figure of 6 million because I simply do not know. They may be 4 million, 5 million, 6, 7, 8, 9 million. I do not know. I do not open tenders. I do not verify tenders. What we do know, it was more than 30%, and therefore it was decided that we should start a new exercise because we need to ensure that these houses are affordable. I don't mind, the government doesn't mind a delay of 1, 2, 3, 4 months. What matters is that these houses are built and that they are affordable. And we will certainly go down in history as the government that managed to implement the largest social housing project in history. And I hope that my good friend, the Leader of the Opposition, will also go down in history as a Leader of the Opposition that supported this project and that did not question and criticize it. Now, so as regards procurement, Mr. Speaker, what I understand is that the NSLD as a special purpose vehicle does not fall under the purview of the Public Procurement Act. I think that is clear, and I explained it.
Wait. You wait, he's replying, you wait. You're in a parliamentary democracy.
Did I say shame when the leader of the opposition spoke? Did I utter a word? Ai-je eu un geste déplacé? I think we should be polite and courteous in this parliament. So I have nothing to hide, and I answered my good friend Honorable Osman when this matter was raised, explaining why we had created an SPV and what the SPV is. Nevertheless, I am informed that the board of the NSLD has improved the implementation of a procurement policy framework to be applied for the procurement of goods, works, consultancy services, and other services with the aim to ensure a transparent, efficient, fair, ethical process with good governance practices and equitable procurement process so as to achieve maximum value for public money. So the NSLD has adopted the open advertised bidding policy in the appointment of PMCCs and building constructors for the construction of housing units, and that is for everybody to see, and this month the bids will be going out again.
So my question again was, is the Deputy Prime Minister willing to table all the bids that have been opened so far in the name of transparency? And I should also warn the Deputy Prime Minister that since it's taken so long to answer, and I have a lot of questions, we will come back to the House as often as necessary to come to prove to the House and to the people at large that all these are unfortunately false promises being made to thousands and thousands of poor Mauritians in Mauritius. And that is the point. Now, tell us whether he will publish the bids that have been received so far.
Mr. Speaker, I do not know whether it is normal practice to publish bids. I am quite happy to go and inquire. If that has been the practice of the PMSD when it was in government, then we shall do so. If it was the practice of the PMSD, we shall do so. Now, we are being accused of making promises. The promises have yielded nearly 2,200 houses since the last elections, and we are building. Now, the leader of the opposition says that he will continue asking questions. Let me ask him, let me tell him that my door is open. He can call on me at any time, and we will provide him with all the information so we can meet whether outside the House, and I shall be only too happy to answer any parliamentary question from the leader of the opposition or from any of my good friends on the other side of the House. We have absolutely nothing to hide. If I have noted that the leader of the opposition has not alluded to any impropriety whatsoever, and if he thinks there is any impropriety, I would invite him to come and say so in the House. In the meantime, Mr. Speaker, whatever opponents may say, we will go on with our work and government will deliver on its commitments.
Purposely any impropriety. And if I hear, I will do so, certainly.
Thank you.
And I will look for it, but I have not seen any so far. I will ask the Honourable Minister now. He has experience. He's going to build 900 units of social housing in Coromandel on a high-rise basis. Is that right? Now, has he spoken to people? Does he understand what the concentration of such huge numbers of units in one area, what does that mean for the quality of life in that unit, in that development? Has he not considered experience overseas? High-rise units, 4 or 5 stories, 900 in one piece means what? 4,000 or 5,000 people on a small plot of land? Does he not consider that instead of quality, he's going to give even worse quality than the NSDC is doing at the moment, where they're constructing small developments on individual houses, on individual plots?
I thank the leader of the opposition for his concern. Let me recall, Mr. Speaker, that we have organized at least 2 workshops to explain the design, the project, and everything we're doing. All the members on the other side of the House, not all, I think all those who'd asked PQs, who'd shown some interest in housing, were invited. 2 or 3 said they would. 1 hour before the workshop, they phoned to say they couldn't. So all these questions were openly debated, and I would have welcomed suggestions, constructive suggestions, from the opposition. And we still have an open mind. So instead of criticizing, if they have any constructive proposals, we are here to listen. Now, as regards Coromandel, let me explain what is happening in Coromandel. Firstly, for inhabitants of constituency number 20, this was the only plot of land available. We have several constituencies where there is no land available. In constituency number 20, we are building close to 600 houses on 28 arpents of land, 28 arpents for these houses. And as regards constituency number 1, where again we have very limited land available, we have some land in Pointe-aux-Sables, and that is all, we have allocated another 13 arpents at Coromandel for approximately 300 houses. The site at Coromandel is exceptional. We are building indeed 900 houses over a total of 13 plus 28. Ça fait 41. 41 arpents of land. The project is exceptional. The leader of the opposition has a point. We are, as far as possible, limiting housing project on any one site to 300, because we are very aware of what it means to settle a large number of families in terms of public transport, in terms of social amenities, and so on and so forth. In some places, that is not possible. And that is precisely one of the reasons why previous governments have not been able to build that many houses. So let me tell the opposition that if they have constructive proposals, we are again open to listen.
Deputy
Time
Prime
over.
Minister.
Let me announce that Prime Minister's question time. PQ B 1081, 1087 have been withdrawn. Honorable Lanquil.
B 1071, please.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I refer the honourable member to the reply made to the PNQ at the sitting of the National Assembly on Thursday, 27th of October 2022, by the Honourable Minister of Gender Equality and Family Welfare on the regrettable case of baby S, who is, as at date, still in the neonatal intensive care unit of the SSRN hospital. The House was, in that reply, made aware that, in view of the seriousness of the matter, the Honourable Minister of Gender Equality and Family Welfare has set up a fact-finding committee to assess whether all required protocols have been adhered to in this case. As regards the mother of baby S, Mrs. S.J.M., age 27, residing at B6 Robert Scott Street, Cité-la-Cure, I am informed by the Commissioner of Police that 2 declarations had been made at the Abercrombie Police Station on Thursday, 15th of September 2022, and at the Line Barracks Police Station on Thursday, 3rd November 2022, respectively, by officers of the Child Development Unit. To specify, the first declaration was a pre-measure requesting the police to trace out Mrs. S.J.M. Despite all efforts of the CDU and the police, the mother was still untraceable, while in the second declaration, a case of child abandonment was lodged against the mother by the CDU on Thursday, 3rd November 2022, at the Line Barracks Police Station. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am also informed by the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family Welfare that on Thursday, 3rd November 2022, the CDU contacted the maternal grandmother of baby S to inquire about the whereabouts of Mrs. SJM and requested her to bring her to the ministry for the necessary procedures to declare the baby. On Friday, 4th November 2022, the maternal grandmother accompanied her daughter, Mrs. SJM, to the tardy declaration of birth office of the ministry. On the same day, needful was done by CDU officers to draw the affidavit and petition for the mother to lodge a case at Port Louis District Court with respect to the tardy declaration of the child. However, Mrs. SJM hastily left the premises of the court when questioned about 2 other minors still under her care. As at date, the procedures for tardy declaration of birth have not been completed, and the advice of the Attorney General's office has been sought on the way forward. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am also informed by the Commissioner of Police that on Monday, 7th of November 2022, during the course of investigation, police arrested Mrs. SJM. After inquiry, she was provisionally charged with the offense of family abandonment in breach of Section 260, subsection 3 of the Criminal Code before Port Louis District Court on Tuesday, 8th November 2022. Police objected to her release on bail, and she was remanded to police cell up to Tuesday, 15th November 2022. On Friday, 11th November 2022, Mrs. SJM was released on bail after furnishing a surety of 3,000 rupees and entering into a recognizance of 20,000 rupees. She will appear court on Wednesday, 18th January 2023. The inquiry into the case is proceeding.
Sir, can the Honorable Prime Minister provide information?
You have to raise your hand. It is not out of right. Read your standing order.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can the Honorable Prime Minister provide information on the number of cases of child abandonment yearly from 2010 to date?
Be careful. Be careful. Please walk out from here for the rest of the day. For the rest of the day. For the rest of the day, God bless you. You're a great man. For the rest of the day, walk out. Yes. Well, it's you, it's you. Yes.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can the Honorable Prime Minister provide information on the number of cases of child abandonment yearly from 2010 to date? Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir, the information that I have is in 2010, 141 cases, 2011, 162 cases, 2012, 128 cases, 2013, 137 cases, 2014, 63 cases, 2015, 54 cases, 2016, 79 cases. 2017, 68 cases. 2018, 75 cases. 2019, 58 cases. 2020, 46 cases. 2021, 55 cases. And 2022, that is as at September, 34 cases. Well, what we can note from these figures is that from 2010 to 2013, there have been quite a number of cases, but as from 2014, the number of cases have reduced. So we will have to study those figures and try to draw conclusions from these figures.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. La charge provisoire retenue contre la maman, nous comprenons que c'est l'abandon. Le Children Act, à la page 512, section B, décrit un place of safety, comprend un foster home, un couvent, un shelter, une institution charitable ou un hôpital. Et surtout que c'est une pratique, Monsieur le Premier ministre, c'est une pratique habituelle du ministère de l'égalité du genre de laisser les enfants qui ont été retirés dans leur famille pendant des mois et des mois dans les hôpitaux, sans surveillance. Expliquez-nous comment, dans ce tel cas, ce cas est considéré comme un abandon, mais quand le ministère laisse des centaines d'enfants dans les hôpitaux, il ne s'agit pas d'abandon. Merci.
Well, you are totally out of order because your question does not relate to this question that you have yourself put. I don't know I think you have to go for refresher course it's no good. That is no good. You are raising issues which are totally outside the limits of this question that you yourself have put.
Monsieur le Premier ministre, souvent dans vos discours, vous dites que vous êtes un grand défendeur des droits de la femme. Rien de mal dedans.
Excuse me. You have the right to put a supplementary question. A supplementary question is not a statement or an argument or a debate, whatever. Put your question straightforward.
Monsieur le Premier ministre, vous êtes un grand défendeur des droits de la femme. Okay? Vous avez l'occasion ce matin de le prouver. Ne pensez-vous pas que cette maman vulnérable, issue d'un milieu défavorisé, ne mérite-t-elle pas plutôt le soutien de l'État mauricien? Ne pensez-vous pas qu'il aurait fallu une approche plus humaine, comme par exemple un soutien à la parentalité, le parenting comme on dit en anglais, et un programme de réhabilitation et de insertion? Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Let me provide some information to the House and especially to the honorable member. Probably she's not aware. Mr. Speaker, sir, since the 5th of September, several home visits were conducted by authorized officers at B6 Robert Scott Street, Cité-la-Cure, to carry out an assessment on the family conditions, to decide on the nature of support.
Yes.
The Minister should not give the address of the lady in question. This is surely not right.
Okay.
If that is what you have done, I regret that you're doing
I
so.
listen to your point of order. Okay. Okay.
You want me to provide information to the honorable member who doesn't understand?
Published. I think you should, in all humility, say that you will not do so again.
Continue.
Well, the officers paid several visits to her home to carry out an assessment on the family conditions to decide on the nature of support to be provided to Mrs. SJM and her family to enable eventual proper upkeep of her children. Yes, you can listen also to the answer, please. Yeah, you're shocked? Yes. No. Maybe you have to take some Xanax then.
Okay. I think the House in good mood. You continue.
But the latter did not want to cooperate, Mr. Speaker, sir. On 7th of September 2022, the matter was reported to the police to secure 2 more siblings of Mrs. MS, deemed to be at risk in the custody of the mother at earliest possible. A DB entry 97/22 in respect of the need to locate the minor siblings with their mother and to explain on the importance of child protection generally was recorded at the Abercrombie police station. After several calls and visits, and I don't want to take the time of the House to say the dates on which the officers had been calling at the residence of the mother. And on the 4th of November 2022, the grandmother and the mother of the baby attended, as I stated in my reply, the tardy declaration section of the CDU. However, after completing the procedures of tardy declaration, when requested to come back to CDU for an assessment regarding the 2 minors in the custody of the grandmother, both grandmother and the mother left the court premises hastily, stating that they had other important tasks to attend to. The police was again requested to locate the mother so that a proper assessment of the latter's capacity to look after her children could be made and the support to be provided accordingly. And therefore, on the 7th of November, the police arrested the mother. Nevertheless, after the release of the mother on bail on 11th November 2022, officers of the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family Welfare and of the La Brigade pour la Protection de la Famille visited her on 12th of November 2022 to assess her needs for support. On 14th of November 2022, a psychologist of the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family Welfare attended her place to provide her with psychological support, but she stated that she was too tired and that she would attend the Child Protection Services of Port Reitz on the next day. That is today, the 15th of November 2022, for psychological support. So, from what I've said, Mr. Speaker, sir, so far, I must say, it is clear that all the assistance that can be provided to this lady and to the children have been offered by officers, social workers of the ministry, and it is regrettable to say the least that this person is not cooperating. I must say, not cooperating at all.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. In his answer, the Prime Minister mentioned about the tardy declaration and also mentioned about the 2 minors. Can the Honourable Prime Minister provide the ages of those 2 minors and confirm to the House that the 3 children of the mother of baby S are not declared to the Civil Status Office? Thank you.
Well, I have the information. The Mrs. SJM is the mother of 3 other children, namely minor GEC, age 4, minor MELC, age 2, and minor KC, age 1. And I am informed that the births of the first 2 children were duly declared, whereas the birth of minor KC was not declared within the prescribed period of 3 months. And the case was referred to the tardy declaration of birth office of the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family Welfare. I can also inform the House that minor MELC has been placed in a foster family, while the 2 other minors are under the care and responsibility of their maternal grandmother.
Thank you. Can I ask the Honorable Prime Minister whether he has any information as during the time mother of baby S was under the custody of the police, whether during that time, whether she was subjected to any medical and psychiatric evaluation, since she has other 2 minors close to her responsibility? Thank you.
Well, I don't have this information. I need to find out from the police, and then I can obviously provide this information to the House.
Speaker, we have, in his reply, the Prime Minister has talked about tardy declaration of birth. Can the Honorable Prime Minister inform the House on the current procedures regarding tardy declaration of birth?
Mr.
What is happening now? Continue.
Mr. Speaker, sir, let me be concise. The tardy declaration process, it starts only after 3 months of a child's birth. It comprises as many as 17 steps from the time preliminary inquiry is held to gather required documents and information till the parents finally attend the civil status office accompanied by a CDU officer for registration of birth and issue of birth certificate. It involves preparation and filing of affidavits, court procedures, police inquiries, and magistrates' orders.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président. J'ai aussi parlé à la grand-mère. Et il n'a pas été question d'abandon, mais elle a pris peur. La maman a pris peur lorsque la CDU a commencé à la chercher, puisque nous tous, ce n'est pas un secret pour personne, que la CDU a retiré les enfants de manière brutale. Monsieur le Premier ministre, au lieu d'aider cette maman vulnérable, pourquoi on est allé chercher une loi, la loi 260, section 3, une loi sur les mœurs pour attaquer une mère vulnérable? Pourquoi?
En tout cas, Monsieur le Président, j'ai dit à la Chambre, le ministère a tout fait pour assister cette dame. À travers les officiers, le social worker, j'ai ample détail concernant les visites, l'assistance de la police pour retracer cette personne. Et les officiers et la police ont été au domicile de la dame et à plusieurs reprises ont rencontré la grand-mère qui n'a, je dirais peut-être pour conclure, elle n'a pas coopéré du tout avec la police et les officiers pour dire où se trouvait la dame. Et dans un cas pareil, le député est en train de venir dire à la Chambre aujourd'hui, au lieu, elle a pu parler à la grand-mère, ce qu'elle dit, elle aurait dû faire, peut-être, donner de meilleurs conseils à la grand-mère, parce que abandonnant un enfant, un bébé, croyez que c'est quelque chose comme si qui est correct, et que c'est maintenant la faute, c'est à qui? C'est pas à la dame, c'est pas à la maman. La faute, c'est au gouvernement. La faute, c'est au ministère de Gender Equality. La faute, c'est à nous maintenant. La faute, c'est à moi. Voilà quel genre de principe est en train d'être advocated by this honorable member. So, elle parle de loi, je ne sais pas quelle loi qu'on a été voir. La loi est la loi. Il faut respecter la loi. Alors, on ne parle pas de la responsabilité et l'obligation d'une mère ou d'un père de famille. Vous oubliez tout ça? Et tout ce que vous avez à faire, c'est de venir critiquer. Alors que, oui, nous avons notre responsabilité, nous sommes en train de discharge our responsibility. But there is also the responsibility of a mother, a father. So I hope when you will meet the family next time, vous allez donner de meilleurs conseils.
Before we proceed, let me announce that PQB 1072, 1084, 1079, 1091, 1077, 1083, 1076 have been withdrawn. Honorable 2.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can the Honourable Prime Minister state how it was established that Mrs. SJM was a drug addict?
Well, I don't want to, because I have been provided with information, but I obviously let me only refer, because this is already in Hansard. I will only refer to what my colleague, the Minister Kunjusha, stated in her reply to the PNQ of the Honorable Leader of the Opposition. I quote one part of it, that the mother has a history of repeated termination of pregnancies. She had also been consuming alcohol, smoking cannabis, and injecting hard and illicit substances throughout her pregnancy, and had not followed antenatal care treatment at all. So I am just quoting from what has already been said in this House, because I don't want to dwell further, because I've been provided with other information, but I think it would not be appropriate for me to provide those information to the House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I wish to come back to the arrest of Mrs. SJM.
Silence.
Can the Honourable Prime Minister state the reasons as to why the police objected to the bail of Mrs. SJM in the first instance, and also inform on the conditions of her bail granted on the 11th of November? Thank you.
Well, Mr. Speaker, sir, from information that have been provided by the Commissioner of Police, the police objected to the bail of Mrs. SJM in the first instance for the following reasons: that is, the risk of absconding, and secondly, interfering with witness. Now, on Friday, 11th of November 2022, the police waived the objection to the bail of Mrs. SJM, and she was released after furnishing a surety of 3,000 rupees and entering into a recognizance of 20,000 rupees. I understand that she will appear in court on Wednesday, the 18th of January 2023, sorry.
You finish? Honorable Mayotte.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Nobody is raising, give me 1 minute, nobody is raising their hands here. And so what are you, ha? Order! Follow the principle of Parliament. Order. You have to raise your hand if you have questions. You have to catch my eyes, not my heart.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je suis d'accord avec l'honorable Stéphane Anctil qui reconnaît que le Premier ministre est un grand défenseur des droits de la femme et je ne voudrais pas porter de jugement sur SJM car nous ne connaissons pas vraiment les raisons de tout ce qui entoure sa vie. Mais ne faisons pas non plus de politique sur ce pauvre bébé qui a été abandonné à l'hôpital. Suite à cela, je voudrais demander au Premier ministre si Madame SJM a pris des nouvelles ou a demandé quelconque information sur le bébé qui est resté abandonné à l'hôpital depuis la naissance, c'est-à-dire le 27 juillet 2022. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Well, Mr. Speaker, sir, I am informed that after Mrs. SJM left G2 Hospital following her delivery, she neither sought any information on her baby, nor did she turn up to visit and take care of her baby. From Thursday, 15th of September 2022, when the CDU personnel filed a pre-measure declaration at Abercrombie Police Station, requesting police to trace out Mrs. SJM to 4th of November 2022, when the latter called at the tardy declaration of birth office, accompanied by her mother. She did not inquire on her baby a single instance.
Dernière question pour vous.
Je vous remercie.
Dernière question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can the Honourable Prime Minister inform the House about the measures that has been taken since 2019 to cater and attend to emergency cases, situation regarding children in distress, as is in the case in the matter that is attracting our attention today in the House?
Mr. Speaker, sir, in 2019, an integrated service center was set up in Phoenix and provided with 4 trained personnel to cater and attend to emergency hotline reporting of child abuse on 24/7 basis. In 2020, a child rehabilitative services was set up with a component of back to home, and in 2022, 3 additional child protection service officers were set up in Moka, Rosehill, and Plaine-Maillan. A 4th one in Triolet is forthcoming. I wish to highlight that the CDU is doing its job to attend to cases where children are in distress, and I believe we need to see how we improve the law and procedures to empower the CDU even more. I have already given, of course, instructions to situate that whatever improvements that are required following the difficulties that have been encountered by the CDU officers.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président. Est-ce que le Premier ministre pourrait indiquer à la Chambre, confirmer, que juste après la décharge de la mère de l'hôpital, elle a visité son nourrisson régulièrement? Il y avait des va-et-vient entre la mère et l'hôpital. Merci.
Well, je n'ai pas cette information, Monsieur le Président. J'ai donné suffisamment d'éléments qui m'ont été donnés par les autorités concernées pour que je puisse répondre à toutes ces questions.
Time over. Parliamentary questions. Mr. Amos.
B 1092.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to inform the House that the Mauritius Shipping Corporation Limited, which falls under the purview of my ministry, is a shipping arm of the government to service the entire island trade, thus ensuring shipping connection between Rodrigues, Agalega, and the mainland Mauritius. The Charter Party Agreement of the MV Black Rhino expired on 30th September 2022. However, I'm informed that while proceeding to Oman for its planned dry docking, the MV Black Rhino left Port Louis on 8th October 2022 to reach Rodrigues on 10th October 2022 for one lost voyage with 164 containers of commodities to Rodrigues. Subsequently, pending the chartering of a replacement vessel to service Rodrigues, the MV Mauritius Tokecha took over the service for shipment of commodities to both Rodrigues and Agalega. In the light of the foregoing, the MSCL has taken all necessary measures to ensure that there is continuity of normal service delivery of all commodities, not only basic commodities to Rodrigues, as well as to Agalega, so as there is no shortage. Mr. Speaker, sir, since October 2022, the MV Mauritius Tokecha has already performed 4 back-to-back voyages to Rodrigues and 1 to Agalega, representing 507 and 98 of containers, respectively, which have already been shipped to these islands. Another voyage to Rodrigues has been planned for tomorrow, comprising 80 containers of commodities and 60 containers carrying 48,000 pockets of cement to satisfy demand in Rodrigues. In a lapse of 1 month, more than 700 containers have already been shipped to Rodrigues, which is more than the normal consignments delivered to Rodrigues during similar period last year. I'm informed that up to 31st December 2022, the MSCL has scheduled the Mauritius Tokecha to effect 4 additional voyages to Rodrigues and 2 voyages to Agalega. In this respect, some 400 additional laden containers will be shipped to Rodrigues. I'm further informed that a new charter party agreement would be signed by MSCL for the chartering of a vessel to service Rodrigues before the end of this month. Thus, the MSCL would have 2 vessels at its disposal to better service Rodrigues and Agalega Islands. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to reassure the House that my ministry has taken all necessary measures to ensure availability of all commodities to both Rodrigues and Agalega.
Before we proceed, let me announce that PQB 1103 will be replied by the Honourable Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Development. B 1132 will be replied by the Honourable Vice Prime Minister, Minister of Local Government and Disaster Risk Management. B 1147 will be replied by the Honourable Acting Minister of Environment, Solid Waste Management and Climate Change. PQ 1133, 1127, 1140 have been withdrawn. Also, PQB 1146, 1139, 1115, 1141, 1148, 1124, 1130 have been withdrawn. Please continue.
Monsieur le ministre, pouvez-vous nous confirmer que au mois de novembre, il y a eu 3 voyages pour Rodrigues, dont un sans container, je parle du 16, du 23 et prochainement du 30 novembre, et qu'en décembre, il n'y a pas de voyage prévu par la Mauritius Tokecha pour Rodrigues.
I just answered, Mr. Speaker, sir. I'm informed that 4 additional voyages has already been planned for Rodrigues for December, up to 31st of December. But anyway, as I informed that a new charter party agreement is on the way before the end of this month, I think the problem will be solved, if any.
Ministre, pouvez-vous confirmer à la Chambre que le Mauritius Tokecha va être en servicing maintenance du 11 au 13 et que la société Afcon a été favorisée le 6 décembre pour effectuer un voyage à Agalega et je maintiens qu'il n'y a pas de voyage prévu pour Rodrigues d'après le schedule de la MSC publié officiellement sur le site.
Mr. Speaker, sir, because we have only one vessel right now, maybe they have, there's a timetable which have been, I think the honorable member have been, this is changing with regard to the demand. But anyway, as I just mentioned that a charter party agreement is before the end of this month, so all this will be changed, obviously.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can the Honourable Minister inform the House where matters stand with the procurement of new shipping vessels for serving the inter-island or the Republic of Mauritius?
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to the new multipurpose cargo vessel being procured by the MSL, which was initially scheduled to be delivered in China in May 2023, unfortunately, in view of the prevailing sanitary restriction due to COVID-19 pandemic, considered as a force majeure, construction works have experienced significant delays, and the shipyard has apprised MSL that the vessel is now expected to be delivered in China on or before September 2023, all going well, of course.
Honorable Minister, the Black Rhino has been off-hired since mid-October, and you had the tender to hire a new charter on the 22nd of October. Can you please let us know why is it that there was no replacement plan to serve Rodrigue while you were putting the Black Rhino off-hired? Because now you will understand that you're having the new charter at the end of the month, and the demand for Rodrigue is very high for the month of November and October. So do I take it that there has not been any replacement plan, since I maintain as well that the tender has been changed twice, and we don't know now what is the rate of the new charter, whether it's going to be more expensive, less expensive, what is the capacity of the new vessel to serve Rodrigue, whether it's going to be more than the Black Rhino or less?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm informed that prior to the expiry of the charter party agreement of the MV Black Rhino, MSCL did launch several expressions of interest, seeking offers from shipping companies for chartering of a multi-purpose dry cargo vessel to service Rodrigue. Unfortunately, they all have been unsuccessful, as none were found to be technically responsive. I'm also informed that bidding exercises have been unsuccessful also due to the fact that bidders have not been able to meet the key requirements that are essential to allow the vessel to enter the harbor of Rodrigue safely. Unfortunately, members, I think the member is aware that due to the specificity of the required cargo vessel being less than 115 meters to get access to the Rodrigue's harbor, and also the 6.4 meters, the draft also, and also to be able to carry the heavy fuel oil for CB. These are all key requirements, and such type of vessel are very rare. So we've been having so many responsive bids. So that has been the issue for the delay.
Honorable Lebas-Mahmoud, next question.
B1093.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to inform the House that extensive consultations have been held since 2021 with all key stakeholders regarding the proposed amendments to be brought to the Protection from Domestic Violence Act. Subsequently, following those consultations, Mr. Speaker, sir, that were held with the various ministries and departments in respect of those amendments, government approval was obtained on the 21st of October this year for drafting instructions to be conveyed to the Attorney General's office. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. Since this government is very caring about violence, domestic violence, can the Minister inform the House the time frame for the bill being brought to the House?
Mr. Speaker, sir, as I have just replied, drafting instructions were conveyed to the Attorney General's office on the 21st of October of this year. So the House will appreciate that the bill, being at the level of SLO, is imminently going to be presented at the level of the National Assembly. But before that, it has to obtain the approval of Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. Can the Minister inform the House whether meeting with NGOs and stakeholders have already, are there any schedule for meeting with other stakeholders and NGOs?
Mr. Speaker, sir, as I stated in my reply, there have been extensive consultations that have been held prior to Cabinet approving drafting instructions to be sent to Attorney General's office. And I can reassure the Honourable Member and the House that yes, there have been consultations with all sectors and all stakeholders, including NGOs and civil society organizations. Sorry.
Next question.
B1094.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the National Gender Policy 2022-2030 was launched on the 8th of March this year by the Honourable Prime Minister. The policy has objectives. This policy, Mr. Speaker, sir, has as objectives among others, to ensure an effective and sustainable implementation of the gender equality principles in the development agenda, as well as to offer an empowering environment with a strengthening institutional framework to support gender mainstreaming and implement gender equality principles in all sectors. Mr. Speaker, sir, the first meeting of the National Steering Committee on Gender Mainstreaming was chaired by myself, and it was held on the 16th of August this year with the supervising officers of other line ministries and departments. The aim and the objective of that committee is to ensure that gender mainstreaming is permeated in all their policies and their programs. Thank you.
Can the Honourable Minister provide information with a specific objective and the modus operandi of the committee?
Mr. Speaker, sir, the objective is quite a range of objectives to be covered, so I'll name just a few, I'll cite a few important ones, salient ones. Like I said, it is to ensure that all gender equality perspectives is taken on board in all policy and when programs are being devised. There are, Mr. Speaker, sir, like I said, the Interministerial Gender Technical Working Committee as well. And again, the main objective is to ensure that the recommendations of the National Gender Policy is being adhered to by all stakeholders.
Next question. Yes.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président. Due to the volume of work and high implications in the implementation of such a policy, does her ministry, can the Minister state whether her ministry have high caliber officers as gender expert to carry out the work?
Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to reassure the House that the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family Welfare, in its capacity as a national gender machinery and as a lead agency for gender mainstreaming, will be devoting the requisite financial and human capital in order for the policy paper to be implemented. Should we require or feel the need to look further for help or consultations or any other assistance, we shall do so.
Next question.
B1095.
Mr. Speaker, sir, with your permission, I shall reply to parliamentary question B1095 and B1109 at the same time, as they both relate to the same subject. The first Mauritian nanosatellite, namely Mauritius Imagery and Radio Communication Satellite 1, MEASAT-1, was launched from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, USA, to the International Space Station, ISS, on 3rd of June 2021. It was subsequently deployed from the ISS to space by a Japanese astronaut under responsibility of the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, JAXA, on the 22nd June 2021. Mr. Speaker, sir, the total amount spent by the Mauritius Research and Innovation Council on the nanosatellite project was 28,999,787 from July 2018 to June 2022. That is over a period of 4 years, which includes design and build of the satellite, capability building, and setting up of the ground station. I'm hereby tabling the detailed cost of the nanosatellite for information. The House may also note that the project benefited from the additional support of AAC Glide of UK in terms of training for designing and building of both the satellite and the ground station at no additional cost. Over and above that, Mauritius benefited from the support of Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency for the transportation of the nanosatellite from AAC Glide in UK to Japan, and from there to Kennedy Space Center in Florida, USA. The satellite was carried on board a rocket from Kennedy Space Center to ISS, and from there it was launched into space, again at no cost. Mr. Speaker, sir, the MRIC team controlled and operated the nanosatellite each time it was within the reach of the MRIC antenna on top of its ground station situated in a bend. Thus, the MRIC team has managed to capture some 50 images with the camera on board the satellite, which was orbiting in space at around 400 kilometers from Earth at a speed of 27,000 kilometers per hour. The House will also note that the nanosatellite was of a size of only 10 centimeter cube with a weight of 1 kg. Due to the size and weight restrictions, the first Mauritian nanosatellite had limited capabilities. The Speaker, sir, with regard to the status of the nanosatellite, it is to be highlighted that the lifespan of such a very small satellite is usually short, approximately 9 to 12 months. Accordingly, as predicted by calculations and simulations, the nanosatellite orbited the Earth for about 10 months, and on 19 April 2022, it re-entered into the Earth's atmosphere and started to disintegrate. The MEASAT-1, has enabled the MRIC team to acquire skills and knowledge on satellite design, development, testing, and verification, as well as controlling, operating, and troubleshooting a satellite in space. And I must mention here, Mr. Speaker, so that this is the first time our team is doing that. Most importantly, Mr. Speaker, so it has enabled the setting up and operation of a ground station in Mauritius. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'll take one more minute because of two questions combined together. I wish to stress that the first Mauritian satellite was indeed a laudable initiative and achievement. Mauritius is among the very few small island developing states which has a space presence and propelled our country into the League of Space-faring Nations, as NASA declared us. This achievement was widely recognized by the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs in its various communications and workshops following the deployment of the first satellite in space. The main objective of this first mission was to build capacity in space and satellite technology. This project was driven by local engineers, Mauritian engineers of MRIC under supervision of the ministry. This project has opened avenues for new collaboration in space industry and harnessing data, satellite data. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, sir, my ministry and MRIC has already initiated actions to collaborate with ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization of India and Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center of Dubai for more capacity building, satellite data sharing, amongst others, in the space sector and the satellite sector. Thank you.
Je vous remercie. Dans un communiqué datant du 8 juin 2021 du ministère en question, on peut lire "The data will be used for various purposes, including maritime surveillance, climate change adaptation, weather forecasting and road traffic management." Sauf qu'aujourd'hui, nous entendons dans la réponse du ministre que le nanosatellite avait un limited capacity. Donc, j'aurais aimé des éclaircissements sur ces deux données contradictoires et j'aimerais savoir, justement, en termes de data capturée par le nanosatellite, l'honorable ministre peut-il nous dire où est-ce qu'il est sauvegardé et est-ce que ce data sera rendu public et en quoi cela aura été utile?
Mr. Speaker, sir, if the honourable member may share the communication you're referring to, June last year, I think you mentioned. I can have a look at it. I don't have it in my file here. Concerning the second part of the question, where the data has been captured, the data has been captured at the ground station of the MRIC at Eben. And the data is public because everybody, Mr. Speaker, sir, that has knowledge on radio communications, for example, the Association of Radioamateurs, those data can be captured. And those data are, can be of various types. It's very technical, it can take some time to explain, but all those data can be captured if you have an antenna and you know how to manage satellite data in your computer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Now that the nanosatellite is no longer operational, may I know from the Honourable Minister what will happen to the ground station and its associated staff?
Mr. Speaker, sir, as mentioned in my reply, that the space technology, the space sector, is indeed a very interesting one for our youth. And the ground station is here so that now my ministry and MRIC is collaborating with other high-profile institutions, like I mentioned, ISRO of India and MBRSC of Dubai, so that there could be more development in our sector, so that tomorrow those young Mauritian engineers that have been trained into this field could also use the ground station if we have another satellite in the future. Of course, it does cost a lot of money to have a satellite. That is why we are collaborating with international and foreign countries to be able to do more for the future.
Merci. Justement, le ministre parlait de formation. Qu'en est-il du capacity building? Dans sa réponse au député, l'honorable Patrice Armance, en avril, il était fait mention du AAC Clyde Space et que ce AAC Clyde Space avait assisted the MRIC in designing and building of a satellite, both through online communications and on-site training. L'honorable ministre peut-il nous dire combien de personnes exactement ont été formées?
Mr. Speaker, sir, we have 2 engineers, Mauritian engineers, who were trained and had cross-exposure from AAC Clyde Space, but not only AAC Clyde Space, we had good collaboration and training facilities from Japan, that is the JAXA, and also from ISRO in India. For the past few years, these young engineers have been provided continuous training with all those international institutions.
Dans la réponse du ministre, il nous a mentionné un chiffre, si j'ai bien entendu, 50 images qui ont été capturées pendant ces 10 mois. Puis-je demander au ministre de faire de sorte que ces 50 images soient publiées? Alors j'ai vérifié, il y a quelques heures, probablement ce matin, le website spacemauritius.com a publié 8 images qui n'étaient pas encore sur le site hier soir. Donc puis-je demander au ministre de faire le nécessaire pour que la totalité des images puissent être partagées publiquement? Merci.
Avec plaisir, Monsieur le Président.
Last question.
Monsieur le Président, je suis un peu choquée d'apprendre qu'uniquement 2 ingénieurs ont été formés dans ce domaine pour un montant de 15 millions. Selon la dernière réponse de l'honorable ministre, en avril 2022, ce on-site training tournait autour de 15 millions. Mais je vais passer à une autre question. J'aimerais savoir de l'honorable ministre s'il existe un deuxième projet d'envoyer un satellite dans l'espace.
Mr. Speaker, sir, we are talking about space technology. Space technology is really, how would I say, very complicated one and technical one. And I should refer to the honorable member to the same reply of the 19th of April 2022, where I said that the MRC engineers benefited from training worth of 15 million. They did not pay for that training. They have received it by our good collaboration and good relationship we have with other institutions. And I refer the honorable member to the second paragraph, 4th line of my answer, saying that MRC had benefited from the collaboration we had, and the engineers were trained in various aspects of that technology, be it the building, be it the design, be it the, how to manipulate it, be it how to capture images over the past few years, and that training worth around £300,000 over the 4 years.
The table has been advised that PQB 1128, 1137, 1126, 1136, 1147 have been withdrawn. I will now suspend the sitting for 1 hour.